Tiny suits of armor for mice. It sounds like the setup to a joke, but it's actually a serious, decades-long art practice that fascinates collectors, students, and fantasy lovers alike. And this is the part most people miss. Beneath the whimsy is a surprisingly deep conversation about power, vulnerability, and what it means to be the little guy in a big, dangerous world. From medieval battlefields to tiny mice. Centuries ago, metal plate armor was developed to keep warriors alive on chaotic battlefields, and over time it evolved into a highly respected art form as well as a military technology. Today, that tradition has an unexpected modern guardian, a metal artist who crafts detailed, historically inspired armor not for human knights, but for mice. Instead of life-sized breastplates and helmets, his studio is filled with miniature suits that look like they belong to tiny heroes from a storybook. As a child growing up in Calgary, Jeff de Boer saw his first suit of armor in a museum, and the impression never really left him. Over nearly 40 years, he has carved out a unique place in the fine art world by mastering armor making at a radically reduced scale and then sharing that expertise with students and other artists. His work proves that an ancient craft can be reinvented in a playful, almost absurd way without losing its seriousness or technical rigor. A childhood in metal and a big idea. De Boer's fascination with armor has always been about more than just how it looks. He's equally interested in what armor represents as a survival tool. He often points out that even in nature, creatures evolve tougher skins and shells to handle harsher environments and fiercer predators, so in a way armor is just another step in that long chain of protective adaptations. Seeing armor as evolved protection helps him bridge the gap between medieval knights and modern people trying to protect themselves emotionally, socially, or physically. Growing up, his father worked as a sheet metal fabricator, which meant de Boer spent his early years surrounded by tools, scraps, and the smell of heated metal. He tinkered constantly and even built full-sized armor, but he learned firsthand how massively time-consuming large suits could be. When he later studied jewelry in art school and began working with delicate, highly precise tools, a new thought struck him. What if he could apply everything he loved about armor to something much smaller, something he could finish in a fraction of the time? The first mouse armor and a turning point. That what if led to a bold experiment, designing and constructing a complete suit of armor sized for a mouse instead of a person. When he brought that tiny armored mouse into class, his teachers reacted with stunned silence before telling him he no longer needed to worry about a conventional jewelry career. The message was clear: he had stumbled onto something so original that it could stand on its own as his main artistic path. Encouraged by that reaction, de Boer began showing his mouse armor in local galleries while he was still a student. Those early exhibitions snowballed into more shows, commissioned pieces, and consistent sales, gradually turning this unusual idea into a full-fledged career. Although he still occasionally creates jewelry and larger sculptures, he is now best known for his miniature armor for mice and, sometimes, for cats, sparking playful who would win in a fight, debates among fans and collectors. The big question: why armor for mice? Whenever his work circulates online, de Boer gets the same blunt question over and over: why make armor for mice at all? His first response is disarmingly simple: why make anything that is purely artistic, whether it's a pendant, a painting, or a sculpture? From a practical standpoint, mouse armor is no more useful than a decorative necklace, yet people rarely challenge jewelry in the same way. When he digs deeper, though, he explains that the mouse offers him a powerful symbol for exploring themes like underdogs, personal protection, and unequal power dynamics. Many people feel small in the face of big systems and big problems, so the idea of a tiny, vulnerable creature suiting up in armor resonates on an emotional level. The armored mouse becomes a stand-in for anyone who has ever felt overlooked, outmatched, or pushed around but still dreams of pushing back. Identifying with the underdog. As a niche artist working in a very specific, highly specialized medium, de Boer often sees himself in the role of the mouse. He knows what it feels like to be small in an art world that often favors large, flashy works and familiar formats. That personal connection helps explain why the figure of a fully armored mouse feels so compelling and sincere rather than just a quirky gimmick. He likes to imagine that by putting on armor, the mouse gains not just protection but also confidence and agency. That thought naturally leads to broader questions. What would armor look like for each of us today? Is it emotional resilience, financial security, a strong community, or perhaps knowledge and education. And if we had our own version of a tiny suit of armor, what quest would we feel brave enough to pursue? Tiny scale, global inspirations. Working in miniature gives de Boer enormous creative freedom, because each small piece requires less material and time than a full-sized suit while still demanding serious precision. He emphasizes that his armor is never strapped onto real animals. Instead, each mouse-sized suit is a sculpture designed to stand on its own as an object of art. This choice keeps the focus firmly on symbolism and craft rather than on novelty or shock value. Within that small scale, de Boer freely borrows and adapts armor traditions from around the world, from Scandinavian styles to Indian motifs to Japanese armor design. He compresses these diverse influences into tiny, highly detailed forms, effectively turning his mouse armor into a miniature survey of global armor history. Fans often enjoy trying to guess which culture or historical period inspired each piece. Teaching the craft of miniature armor. De Boer occasionally shares his methods through specialized workshops where students learn both artistic and technical skills. In these classes, participants practice making molds, punching and shaping metal, and understanding how heat, pressure, and different alloys affect the final result. The process is hands-on and meticulous, much like traditional jewelry making but with a strong sculptural and historical twist. At a recent masterclass, for example, one student, a video game designer named Thiago Vidotto, joined specifically to better understand how real armor is built. For creators of digital characters, this kind of practical insight helps them add believable imperfections and wear marks, which makes animations and game worlds feel more authentic and less sterile. Another participant, a newer artist named Laurie Raubacher, attended to sharpen her metalworking skills and admitted she was also drawn in by the sheer whimsical charm of mouse armor. Whimsy, joy, and a hint of controversy. Many people are captivated by the light-hearted side of de Boer's work, the idea that something as fierce as battle armor can be shrunk down and assigned to one of the most timid creatures in popular imagination. That playfulness is part of its appeal. These pieces are made simply to be enjoyed, to spark smiles, curiosity, and storytelling. They show that serious craftsmanship and a sense of humor can coexist in the same object. But here's where it gets controversial. Some critics might argue that so much skill and effort should go towards serious or socially urgent subjects instead of tiny fantasy armor. Others might question whether this kind of art is too niche or whimsical to matter in a meaningful way. De Boer's work quietly challenges that perspective by suggesting that joy, imagination, and the chance to see ourselves differently as small but brave are themselves valuable contributions. Your turn. What's your armor? By reviving and reinventing an ancient craft at mouse scale, de Boer hopes to delight people while nudging them to think about their own battles and defenses. His dream is that these miniature metal-clad mice inspire viewers to confront their fears, protect what matters, and slay whatever dragons stand in their way, whether those dragons are external pressures or internal doubts. In that sense, the armor is less about war and more about courage. So here's the part most people overlook. This art is really an invitation. If you could design your own personal armor, physical, emotional, or symbolic, what would it look like? And what quest would you pursue once you put it on? Do you see mouse armor as a profound metaphor, a delightful piece of nonsense, or something in between? And where do you draw the line between playful art and serious art? Share where you stand, especially if you strongly agree or strongly disagree with this tiny but mighty artistic vision.